This past week, it feels like everybody is talking about Notebook LM from Google. Have you seen it? It's the one where there are two AI voices producing a podcast based on your content. So you can feed it an article or a blog post, and then these two people, and I'm saying that with air quotes, these two people start to have a conversation about it as if it's a talk show of sorts. I've heard from coaching clients who are very excited about it. I have heard from other content creators who are very excited about it. And just yesterday, I listened to an episode of the Accidental Tech podcast, and they were talking about it, and they were talking about it in a different light. And what they were saying is very much in line with how I feel about it. It's kind of a neat parlor trick, but that's all it is. It creates the blandest, most vanilla style content you can imagine. If you imagine two people who are hired to do a morning talk show talking about something that they don't know anything about and don't care anything about, that's the kind of content that is created. It has no personality, no style whatsoever. It sounds real. I'm not going to lie about that. It does sound real. It is very convincing. And maybe this will turn into something useful down the road. But for right now, it's just really dull and really boring and not at all memorable. And the really bad news, the terrible thing about this from my point of view is that this is the kind of content that we have been taught to create. This is what we think good content sounds like. This is what the morning talk shows are creating. This is what SEO-focused content sounds like. This is what we were taught to create way back in high school when we were learning to write essays and term papers. This is the kind of content that we were taught to create. It's boring, it's dry, it is dull, it is completely devoid of personality. The good news, though, is that it's really easy to stand out in a world where people think that this is good content. This is episode 128 of the Tiny Course Empire podcast, and today I want to talk to you about how you can create content that stands out even in the most crowded of niches, and how you can do it just by being yourself. Hey, before we dig into today's topic, I want to remind you to grab my Clear framework. You'll find it below in the description. This is the blueprint that is going to take you from no business to 6 or even 7 figures. It is super simple, and it is the exact process that other course creators and coaches are following today to build sustainable, profitable online businesses. If you're new to the show, be sure to hit the subscribe button. New episodes drop every Monday morning. And next week, I want to talk to you about the thing that's really holding you back from creating more content in your business. And that's your need for it to be perfect. But that's next week. This week, I want to talk to you about how you can stand out even in a crowded niche. So let's dive in. So here's a hot take, and it probably won't surprise anyone if you listen to the intro to this show, but my first tip for standing out in a crowded niche is to create your own content. This is a hill that I will die on. Do not let someone else or something else create your content for you. Now, I'm not saying that there is no room for AI or for done-for-you content in the content marketing space. That is not what I'm saying at all. But tools like this are not for making content. They are for making your content better. For example, you might use AI to do some research for you. If you're not really sure about a topic, ChatGPT is a really good first pass at resource. Perplexity, also really good. You might use AI to check your grammar and your spelling. Tools like Grammarly have been around for a long time. They didn't call them AI, but that's what they are. And those tools are really useful for doing simple things like grammar and spelling and tone of voice to make sure you're not writing in passive voice, for example. Titles is another thing that I really like ChatGPT for. You can ask it to help you create a more compelling, more engaging title, and it will come up with dozens and dozens and dozens of examples that you can just choose from. It's a really good use for AI as far as I'm concerned. Outlines are another good use for AI. If you have an idea for what you want to create and you want to flesh out an outline, you can feed your ideas into a tool like ChatGPT and it will help you flesh that out and make it beefier and maybe come up with some ideas that you didn't necessarily think of in the beginning. Those are all reasonable uses for AI in your content creation. But if you're using AI or done-for-you content to substitute for your own thoughts, for your own ideas, for your own time, that is not a good use for those tools. And they will not help you to stand out online. Instead, what you'll get is content that some people will consume, but that no one will remember 5 minutes from now. Now, I'm also not anti-outsourcing. If you want to outsource some of your content creation, like sales page writing or email marketing, things like that, or video editing, all of those things can and maybe even should be outsourced. But what you should not outsource, what you should not abdicate, is the content that you are creating that makes people want to work with you. You should not be delegating the creation of the content that attracts your audience. That's the content that helps people get to know you better. It's the content that shows off your expertise. It is the content that lets people know how you think and how you feel and what your values are and whether or not somebody wants to work with you. And if you are outsourcing that either to a person or to an AI, then why would I want to work with you? I might as well just go hire the person that you hired to write the content instead. So write your own content, create your own video content, create your own podcast, write your own blog posts, write your own articles, write your own courses. That's what I want from you. That's what I want from the people that I am learning from the people that I look up to. I want to know that the content of theirs that I am consuming is actually theirs and not just something that they paid someone else to create or that was generated by an AI tool like Perplexity or ChatGPT. The second tip I have for you is to find your writing voice and to be authentically yourself. Now, this is something that comes from repetition. The more content you create, the closer you will get to your writing voice. And when I'm talking about voice, I'm talking about something that is, it's a part of your branding. So for example, if you pick up a book and you start reading it and it was written by Stephen King, but you don't necessarily know that, maybe you didn't see his name on the cover or whatever, but you pick up a book and it was written by him, if you are a fan of Stephen King, you will recognize it immediately. He has a very strong writer's voice. In the nonfiction world, Anne Handley is someone who has a very strong voice. I can read an email that she has written, and even if I don't know it was her, I can recognize it just by the style of writing. It's the phrases that they use. It's the sense of humor that comes through. It's the examples that they provide. It is the language that they use, the words. All of those things lend themselves to that formation of their voice. My goal as a content creator is to develop my content voice so much so that if you read an article that I have written, you will recognize it as being me. And that should be your goal as well, that someone who reads a piece of content that you wrote will recognize it as yours. When that happens, then you know you have created your unique voice. You have developed that voice. And I think that's a goal that we should all have. And this is the opposite of sounding like an AI generated voice speaking a podcast, right? This is something that cannot be replicated by AI, at least not at this time, at least not in 2024 when I'm recording this. Maybe someday that will be true. The technology seems to get better at an astounding rate, so I can't say that that will never happen, but right now, your voice is not something that can be replicated, and your voice is something that is unique to you, and it is a way that you can make your content stand out, even in the most crowded niches. And the third way that you can stand out, even in a crowded niche, is by taking a stand for what you believe in. And I have talked about this before. This is so important in the world today. In a world where most of the content online is that bland, dull, boring, vanilla content that anyone or anything could have written. Taking a stand for what you believe in is a way to stand out. That starts by knowing your core values. I've talked about core values before. I'm going to leave a link to my favorite core value assessment in the description if you want to discover what your own core values are. But when I'm talking about core values, for me, I'm talking about things like independence. I don't want to be dependent on another human being or a company for my livelihood. That's why I run my own business. I am in control of my income. I am in control of my time. I am in control of my life. That's what independence means to me, and it's one of the things that I talk about a lot in my content. Wealth is another one of my core values, and I talk a lot about money. I don't think there's enough people talking about money. I don't think there's enough people talking about wanting to make more money. I think it is okay to be talked about. I think more people should be talking about it, and that's something that I bring to the content that I create and to the trainings that I create as well, because it's important to me, and hopefully it's important to you as well. Integrity is another one of my core values. Marketers that lie to you, that make promises to you, that tell you that you can use AI to generate an entire website and be making money by tomorrow morning with it, they make me fume. They make me so angry because it violates my sense of integrity. It violates my sense of truth. And I bring that to the content that I create. And all of these core values, and I have more, but all of these core values help me to create content that stands out, even in the really crowded niche of make money online, start a business online, start a course creation business, which is where I'm at. Another thing to keep in mind is to be confident in your own opinions. If you disagree with something, if you disagree with the common advice in your niche, talk about it. Tell people about it. Tell people why you disagree. Tell us why you think that idea is wrong. It will draw your ideal customer to you, and it will immediately turn people away who are not your ideal customer. I'll tell you, there are people who are listening to this podcast right now who completely disagree with me about my stance on AI. Well, they're probably not listening. They probably turn the podcast off. And you know what? That's okay, because they're not my people. They are not the people who want me as their mentor, who want me as their coach, who want to learn from me, because they don't agree with my thoughts and my feelings on the use of AI in content generation. And that is okay. And that actually makes my business stronger, not weaker. It makes my marketing message stronger because it makes it more appealing to the people who do agree with me, the people who do see that, the people who do think, yeah, I don't like that AI thing either. I don't want to be creating content with that. I don't want to read content. I don't want to consume content that was created that way. I want the authentic experience of connecting with an actual human being. Those people are my ideal customer, and everyone else is going to be turned away by my stance on it. So don't be afraid to share your authentic opinions in your content. That is a really good way to brand yourself and to stand out no matter what niche you are in. And of course, reserve the right to change your mind too, right? Don't dig in so hard that you can't be swayed. That's not taking a stand, that's building a wall. And that's never going to be good for your business or for your life in general, right? We don't want to isolate ourselves. We don't want to be so strong-willed, so ensconced in our beliefs that we cannot change. So hold your opinions firmly but loosely. And don't be afraid to share them with others. Last week, I said that content is still the currency of the internet, and it is. I believe that to be true. I believe that that will always be true. But most of what's out there is pretty worthless if we're being honest. It's dull, it's dry, it is something that anyone could have said or written or created, and that AI is getting really good at doing for us, and that's just not useful to anyone. It is not memorable. It is forgotten as soon as the next video starts to play on YouTube or as soon as the browser tab is closed. And you don't want to be creating content like that. If you want to build a profitable, sustainable business, you cannot waste your time on dull, boring, forgettable content. You have to find a way to stand out. And I've given you 3 ways to do that in this episode. Now it's your turn. Leave me a comment below and tell me what you do to create content that stands out, content that makes a difference in your niche. I would love to hear what ideas you have. And could you do me a favor? If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with a friend or a colleague who can use business building, content marketing advice for their business. It helps us to grow the channel. And like I said, rumor has it that it helps YouTube to know that you value our content and to show it to more people. I would appreciate your support. That's it for me this week. I will be back next week to talk to you about how you can stop letting perfectionism hold you back from creating the content that your ideal audience most needs to hear from you. Have a terrific rest of your day, and I will see you next week.